What's up, guys? Today we got Chad and Matt, who are competitors, but also friends that work in the same market. So I love this episode because it applies to solo inspectors or multis, but the idea of co-opetition, so cooperating with your competition, very cool relationship they have. So I want you guys to really hear how it came about and how they push each other to get better, because it's a classic example of you are the average of the five people around you or who you spend the most time with, but they really push each other to be better, and and they talk through how that happens. So I want you to encourage you to really listen in and see how you could apply this, how you could find other good energy and people that are pushing themselves, people that are growing to make you better in your market. I just think it's a really neat concept and a neat episode, and how they bounce off each other. You could tell they really are friends and boys. And so I hope you enjoy it, and let's get into it. Awesome. All right. Well, we're rolling. Chad, Matt, I'm pumped for this one. This is a first to have two different inspectors from two different companies, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Well, for one, Matt, I need you to repeat what we just said off camera. So you're sitting in a car, clearly. Life changes
I
may
am,
be happening
yes.
any minute now, right?
Yes, we are expecting number 5 any day now. And we had some indicators right before this podcast, and we said, no, we're going to go for it. So if I disappear, number 5's on the way. So
Sacrifices for the pod, baby, for the podcast.
That's right.
This is an epic
Bigger
sacrifice.
picture.
Right on. So, Chad, tell me real quick the impetus behind wanting to do this and jump on with Matt. Like, why? How'd you think of it? Because we haven't done this before. It's amazing.
So, I mean, speaking with Rhea and getting who's the lady who does my my website, right? And then getting the invitation, I was blown away to begin with, right? But my story and Matt's story, though they started completely different. We met at another training for an energy company here that owns the lakes, and they create power from there, right? So they require an ancillary service that we're able to do through their training, which is the boat dock inspections, which more or less is just a check of what is there and making sure that it complies with what can be on the lake, right? So we met through that, but we had seen each other through Spectora and looking in the directory and knowing each other and Facebook, but never really communicated, right? And we just kind of hit it off, and had that same mindset of the rising tide raises all ships, which is nothing you haven't heard on this podcast before, right? We've heard it a million times, and Zig Ziglar said it in other ways, and it just comes from so many different places. But we both truly believe that, and felt that way, and we've been there just helping each other back and forth, right? Whether it's communicating from what is this deficiency, things we haven't seen before, right? And being able to talk through it, or those moments when you're bored. It's a lonely time when people don't show up, and we have a lot of people coming in from out of state, right? And so they don't always come to the inspection. They come in, they look at the house, and then they call us on their way back, right? And so we're there, and we're moving along, and it just gave us that camaraderie. But we hit it off, and then we'll dive in more on things that we have collaborated with since then. But it was just it's been a great fit. We're doing a lot of different things together, but more importantly, like I alluded to in the email, the real estate agents in our market, they love it, right? They know Matt, they know me. They see what we're doing. They know how we do our inspections. They see the camaraderie before we ever saw it, right? They knew that would be that fit, and so they're hitting the posts on Facebook and stuff. So glad to see that y'all are working together. It's like the dream team coming, but we're still separate.
Yeah,
but it's a crazy story, and we'll get into it.
I love it. So it's kind of a mentality that we don't see as much in our industry, and that's why I'm like smiling kind of permanently with this. And so, Matt, can you tell me a little where you guys are at kind of in your business journeys and arcs in terms of when you started officially, and kind of where you're at with that?
Yeah, Chad was a couple years ahead of me. July will be officially 2 years of being licensed for me, and then October will be 2 years full time.
Right on. Congrats.
And so thank you. I had a pretty quick start to it. Had to actually. So I think you had Floyd and Sandra Gibbs on the podcast a while back, and they talked about one of their class members in Arkansas who had to borrow money to take the class and was about to be debt free. And ironically enough, I made my last payment today. So this industry and this career has totally, you figure, I told you 5 kids. So my wife stays at home. I'm it for the finances. So I had to get something going quick. But yeah, I've been, Chad was a little while before. He was doing a lot of online SEO, pulling very differently. I jumped right into the real estate offices and presenting and connecting. I've got a background in full-time ministry, so public speaking was very much, an easy segue for me.
Sure.
But we connected, started working together. And then one of the biggest things that we collaborated on. So at some point, I forget when it was, but I've got a background in some commercial contracting as well as a project manager. And so I wanted to tap into the commercial inspection market, and wasn't ready to bring somebody on, but knew I wanted to have another set of eyes and someone running around with me. And so Chad and I will say this too, we definitely had like that trial period of, can I trust this guy? Is this going to work out?
Right.
He, when we split our first commercial job, he even was waiting to see, like, all right, is he really going to split this 50-50? Because, Spectora really is what made it possible, because I have a separate company that I started, ACPI, which is Arkansas Commercial Property Inspections. And we'll go, just a couple of days ago, Chad, another inspector, Brian Shannon, he's with Actuate. He's in Jonesboro, a different part of the state. The 3 of us drove out to do like a 45 unit complex or 48 unit complex together.
Nice.
We divided the responsibilities, entered everything into our templates, hit sync at the end of the day, and had a report ready to go for our client. And so I think what works well for us is, one is we have a shared valued system. So doing things with integrity, putting the client first, really caring about that process, being very thorough. Those things were very important to us. And then secondly is we both went through ICA for training. Did I cut out for a minute? Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. Yep.
You're good. Okay. We went through ICA training separately, but same training. And then Spectora was, not to sound cheesy about it, but that really was the thing that made this work. I shared a boat doc template with Chad, and then we just started rolling from there. So it's been a lot of fun. And like you said, agents love that they can expect a similar product and consistent inspection and have 2 out of those 3 names on their list readily available. So it's worked out great for us.
It's a refreshing mentality. Chad, I'm curious where that mentality comes from in you, because it's not normal. And like I said, in our industry. And so like, where did it come from for you because it sounds like you were the kind of the veteran of this kind of partnership tandem, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm ahead of him in timeline as far as when I got licensed, right? But I was part-time for the first 2 years. So I've only been full-time doing this. Well, it's been a year and 4 months now. And it was the moment that I went into Spectora. That was my change. That was when, I went from the PDF into Spectora, and I'm making this change. I'm doing it. I've got to be able to stand out, and that did it. But the mentality comes from, I'm big into, self-help and constantly making myself a better person, right? And reading and podcasts. And I've been listening to you guys since I started, and then, other podcasts. Just everything that you listen to with successful people, right? From Ed Milet to Andy Frisella and a million other people, right? It's just, you're competing, but you don't have to compete to put somebody down. You can compete together and raise each other up, right? So him being better makes me better. Me being better makes him better. When we're able to, help each other, it doesn't hurt anything. And that's the mentality that we're trying to crush, right? So I don't have to be mad at the guy that's inspecting in the same town that I'm inspecting in, right? I can use him as a resource. He can use me. I was on vacation, and one of my trusted, agents said, "Hey, I've got this inspection coming up. Can you do it?" They're behind on their timeline. I couldn't. I called Matt and I said, "Hey, do you mind if I make a transition, try to get them set up with you?" And everybody was excited about it, right? And the client, most importantly, turned out it was an investment client. He's got more coming. So it didn't shy him away from me. It put Matt in place to take care of it today. And it still put me at a higher level, because now he saw that I was there to help him truly, which is what we're here to do to begin with, right? So my whole mindset is, we're here to help these people, right? It's the largest decision or investment that they're going to make in their lives in most cases. And we're here to help them protect that. And if that's me going out there, or if that's putting, Matt out there, whatever it looks like, we're here to protect him, and that's it. And so it comes from, diving in, being comfortable in my own shoes, and the consistent working on myself as a person and knowing what that means in helping others. And never once has anybody been brought down from helping somebody else. You're always going up if you're helping other people, and God blesses you, and that's just all there is to it. And it's been that type of camaraderie since the beginning, and that was the strike that we could feel right off the beginning, with that type of energy. And it never went away. It only increased and grew. I talk to Matt more than I talk to my wife, and I live at home with her, right? And it's crazy, but when I'm out in the field, we're talking to each other. We're communicating. Yeah. It's been enjoyable, and it's only getting more crazy, and it's accelerating fast.
I really love the parallels of looking within, self-help, working on yourself that leads to confidence, which leads to pouring into other people. It's kind of, we're all probably talking about it like it's natural, but for those listening, it is kind of a magical thing when you pour into yourself. You start to feel available to others and feeling like you can put into them. So you guys, and you also talked about the lonely industry part, right? I think, Matt, you mentioned that. Can you speak a little bit about that, what it means as a solo operator to feel like you almost have a teammate in a sense? Because only entrepreneurs know this feeling when it's just like lonely as hell. And you're like, is this even right? Like, why should I do this? And you're just guessing half the time, right? So the comfort, if you could speak to having that.
Yeah, I'll allude to a little bit and then let Matt jump in. I mean, but it's everybody gets that phone call, right, of this thing or something popped up after the inspection, and that you get that sinking feeling inside, right? And 9 times out of 10, it was there, it's in the report, whatever it is, because you're doing a thorough job or something of that nature, right? But it's that sinking feeling, and nobody else knows it except for us. Nobody else can feel that. When you've got the ability to turn and talk to somebody and say, hey man, this one, and then they can look without the same pressure and tell you, hey, was this here? Were you looking for that? Was this in place? Covering all your bases, and it helps you think a little bit more critically. It's just that when you're by yourself, you go deep dive, and it's dark in here. That's just all there is to it. It's dark in there. And it gives you an opportunity to get outside and see things, from a different perspective, even in good times. And when you're sharing the highs, that's even better. It's way better.
Yeah, we just had a couple times this week even. We've got a really good back and forth even on ancillary services, because I do air quality testing. Chad has thermal imaging. And so when clients request these ancillary services, we feed off each other. But the moment he was talking about, you get that call, hey, do you remember such and such address? And your stomach just drops. And it's not like you're not confident in the inspection you did, or you're not throwing what you're doing, but we've all had that moment. And to be able to call and process, hey, this is what I did. Part of that camaraderie inspectora is we like to share the cover your butt narratives, where we can come in and say, hey, this is how I write this up. When I encounter this is how I explain this. It's just been really good, especially in Arkansas. They just changed it, but previously you didn't have to do any kind of shadowing or any kind of time with another inspector. So you would get your license and you're getting thrown into it. So ICA, again, not to sound like a fanboy, but they have been phenomenal as far as when I first started out. I had someone I could always call. I had someone to bounce things off of. But when you have somebody in your same demographic that's working with the same agents, that's going through, very similar structures, same areas, how it is in inspections. We have different areas tend to have similar things going on. It just has made it a lot of fun, because again, unless you have a team or employees, you're one guy running all over town. A lot of times agents are not hanging out. They're going to be in their car. So you just, 2.5 hours by yourself through a home. And so to be able to call and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. What do you think? But what's cool too, and I don't know if this is something to really get into, but what we've done in our pursuit of growing each other's inspectors, man, we've actually moved even into, hey, I want to challenge you here as a husband. I want to challenge you as a father. I want to encourage you just as a man, how to grow. And so it's become a really cool dynamic that I think even other inspectors are noticing and kind of wanting to have that same thing going on, because it's just been so good for us as individuals. But like Chad said, even for our businesses, for agents to see that kind of agreement, and commonality has been a really, really beneficial thing for us.
Oh, let's dig into that, because I think as you know, as men in certain professions, it doesn't maybe come as natural or is not as accepted to push each other on the personal side or the emotional side. And so like that's obviously missing from our industry in a big way. And so, you know, I speak as a person that also, it's like when I have those friendships with other men where we can push each other and talk about
Yeah.
how we're showing up as fathers, as husbands, and kind of how we're feeling emotionally. To me, that's like a holistic friendship. When you talk about business and that
Yeah.
side, it's like rocket fuel, right? You're just like,
Yeah.
you feel
Yeah.
full for the day. It's good for the soul. So yeah, it's hard to find, no? Where you share the work stuff, but then you can get into the personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We, go ahead, Chad.
No, I was gonna say one of the biggest things with that is, you know, or an example rather is like, so Matt, you know, may be knocking out, you know, 2 or 3, and he had a bigger market than me, right? So he's in the Little Rock, and then moving down into Hot Springs, where I'm in Hot Springs Village, which is a little smaller growth area. And so he was busier many times, right? And when you get busier, you start to go through and getting those important photos, and you're getting through it, and you're trying to work to get to that next one. And sometimes your time's not lining up, and you're not able to do everything on site, right? So you're bringing it home, and you know he has 4 kids. He's got a 5th one on the way. And so for me, when I was coming into it, in our training, they were talking about the guys that go out and take all their pictures and the mental notes and this, that, and the other, and they go home and then filling out the reports and making that a common and normal thing. And I didn't want any part of that. I didn't want any part of that at all. I wanted to do it all there. And that's why when I found Spector and I found the template and I got comfortable with it, it was just so much easier to do so for me, right? I'm following through it,
Yeah.
staying true
Big
to
time.
it, not getting out of it, and being able to share that with Matt in helping him, you know, to think more on that line. Does it, do we all do it on site every time 100%? Not necessarily. Many of us, you know, many people do, and that's great. But at the same time, when you can bring back an hour at home, 2 hours at home, that's phenomenal, you know. And the thought process was, oh, well, you know, I'll get home, I'll hang out with the family, and then when the kids start to go to bed after dinner, I'll get out there and start. Well, how much of that time that you're actually spending with the family are you not thinking about that report that you've got to finish? And
Yep.
so now the time that you're spending with the family, what does that look like?
Empty time. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
quality time.
Accountability is a huge thing that comes into play with what we're doing. Because that's been a conversation we've had a couple of times. Hey man, just checking in. I'm getting my reports done on site, not going home to do them tonight. Or he'll text me while I'm working on one at home. He's like, "What are you doing work on your report right now? You didn't get it finished." And so we just, you know, it's made for a really cool thing, man. It's made healthier all around, just business and work-life balance for us. So it's I know it's not common, you know, but I don't think it has to be as rare as it is, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I think that one of the biggest hurdles that inspectors need to get over is just insecurity, and that fear that, like, what if they like them better, you know? Chad and I, we refer out to each other if I can't get to something, or if I know someone who needs a thermal, you know, hey, I know a guy. And it helps a lot. Hey, this is who I would trust with my home if I couldn't do it myself. And so having that going on and maintaining that dynamic has been really great. But I just think, and my mentality too, and with Chad is, you know what, if I refer Chad out and somebody decides that he's a better fit for them or their client, that can't be perceived as a loss. That has to be perceived as me having done my job and provided a better service for them, and then have enough confidence and trust in the process that I will find my agents and my people. And that's kind of even my wife and I, when we decided to go out on and do our own business. And I look at everything as like us, you know, she's at home, but like I can't do what I can without her, and vice versa. But we just said, we're going to find we're just going to commit to integrity. We're not going to compromise on the way that we do reporting. We're not going to compromise on how thorough we are to appease anyone. We're going to go out and give it our best. And that will help us to distinguish and find our people and the agents that we run with. And that philosophy and mentality has served us very well. And because Chad is of the same mentality, it really lends to us working with the same agents, because we definitely have our own market to pull from, but we do have quite a bit of overlap as well. And so just to see that consistently working for us, you're a little bit leery at first, but you really learn to trust that process and recognize that if you do just speak positively of others, if you do encourage them, and you're not looking to be better than the next guy, just your best self, it works. It really does.
But if you do want to be better than the next guy, just have your website done by Spectora and it won't be an issue.
It's fair.
Let's dive into this. One, the confidence piece, 100% agree that signaling that to agents, to clients, to each other only brings back more good energy and people into your life. So I'm a huge fan of that. 100% agree. Let's talk about the marketing and positioning part, because I'm sure most people would be like, oh, like what happens when, you approach the same agent, or you're getting coffee with an agent that has worked with one of you in the past. And let me preface this with another point of, if you're the 2 out of the 3 that they recommend, like you said, do you guys kind of compete and say, like, are you leveling each other up in that way where you're like, okay, if it comes down to me and you, it's like, let's look at our websites head to head. Okay, I'm going to tweak this over here because I'm going to one up you. And then then you start to see that competition makes you both better. Yeah. Now no one else has a chance to get that inspection, is the way I'm thinking about it, where I'm like, it's going to be one of you two. And if you're splitting market share in a big city, you're living good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you speak on that, on kind of the agent relationships and kind of the competition piece?
Yeah, I will say this real quick on the website is Chad has the advantage here because he had Spectora design his website and I did mine on Wix, but we won't talk too much about that. I've got it. It's in the plans to get Spectora to do my thing, because I go to his website and I'm like, if they base this off of the web presence, I'm done. But I'll tell you exactly how the conversation goes with agents that know both of us. We'll both make the joke of like, hey, you know what? He's a great number 2 on your list. And that's funny, but it always comes back to like, listen, Chad is phenomenal at what he does. He's a great person and a fantastic inspector, and you can't go wrong with him. You will never, when it comes to an agent, I will never speak ill of another inspector, whether I think that they're great or not. I just won't kind of sew that into my business. I always look for an opportunity. I know Chad does the same, to build up and to just talk really highly of other people. That's what that conversation looks like. Oh, have you worked with so and so? Yes, I have. They're fantastic. If I can't get to your house, they're a great second phone call.
Beautiful.
And that's kind of how, that's kind of how it's worked out. And Chad, you can allude to some of your conversations. That really is how it's gone for me. And what you find is they're going to come back to you. Like if you do them that service, I literally have agents that will text me, Matt, who do you know in Northwest Arkansas? Do you have an agent I can call? They call me to find out who they need to call, because they see that networking, they see the camaraderie, and they're always going to be a Spectora user. They're just, because it sets you apart. They're already familiar with the templates that I use. And it just genuinely, I think, what helped set me apart on the front end from these other agents, because I the truth is, I got my license. I was just doing 1 or 2 a week, because at the time I was like, man, this will change my life to do 2 inspections a week, man. And I was using a different software. I switched to Spectora. I did a couple presentations, and I lost my job while like in the middle of this, and I didn't have 6 months to build a business. I had 2 weeks. And so I did 2 presentations. I prayed really, really hard, and I gave it my best. And so I went full time October 1st of that year, and was hitting about 6 a week, 2 weeks into October. And the constant feedback I got, and my presentation was very good. I connected everything to a story that I had with, and made it personal, all those speaking techniques that you bring in. But the thing I kept hearing was, I love your reporting. I love your software. It's so easy to use. I love the tool I can use for my URSA. And so it really set me apart early on, when I didn't have the experience to draw on and say, oh, I've inspected this many houses, I've been doing this many years. The way that I always tell people is, my report is my last impression, right? I get to make a first impression on a call. I get to meet and talk with you on site, but the last thing you hear from me is that report. And so that has to be excellent.
100%. Chad, if you could speak to the competition piece, because not everyone has someone to push them. And I think I worry a lot of solo operators think they're doing well and they don't have a sounding board. They don't have someone to push them to say like, oh, are you still working on this?
Right. So the competition piece is real easy. We'll go back to what he was alluding to earlier with how I started my marketing, right? So I didn't go into the offices as near as much, right? So I came from remodels, floors, carpentry work, and that was in the height of COVID, and I was so busy I couldn't get out of it. So it was fine doing part time for that first year and a half, right? But in doing so, I wanted to do more at home when I could to kind of put my feet in the ground, sink it down. So my Facebook, my Instagram, my online presence made it big. So I had no idea what I was doing. Just tried to, who am I? Right. I like to have a good time, lighthearted, funny, excellent. What do I like? Memes. I didn't have any pictures to go off of. So recreating memes, and then getting into a rhythm of it, start making new memes. And then you're doing it with pictures that you're taking at houses, and it just evolved into different things. And so when we started having these conversations, I'm looking at his Facebook, I'm like, dude, your stuff is so weak. Like, you haven't posted in 3 months. What are you doing, bro? and it's just little things like that, right? And even when we're doing the commercial, right? So we're driving back an hour and a half from doing that commercial, and I'm pulling up the pictures, and I'm like, hey, look, we got to put something on there. We're going to tag each other in it, and we're going to tag our business in it. Then we're going to repost it and tag each other in the business pages and get that, share around. And he's like, oh, okay, well, this is the direction I want to go, and this is how I want it to look. And then we can do the funny side from our personals, and just, competing in the marketing versus, hey, did you get that phone call from so and so, when you've got that shared agent? And they'd be like, yeah. Be like, well, I just left them in, and you just get that.
Yeah.
And it's no big deal, but it's just that little bit of competition, but at the same time, you're rooting them on, and you're mad at them, and you're happy for them all at the same time. You're not really mad, you're just like, that sucker got me, right? But I'm gonna get the next one. And it's just, it's fun. It's like being in high school, and you're trying to fight for the ball when everybody's just playing around with the basketball. You're trying to get that rebound and get it up there, right? And someone comes in, and he's Matt's 6 foot 11 and a half. I mean, he's so freaking tall. He could reach over me every time when it comes to that. But if I got one, I'm gonna rub it in on him. You go, this guy that's 5'10", get one from you. And it's the same thing. It's no different. It's like that childhood, competition and camaraderie, just coming together, and you're feeding off of it.
And what I envisioned too, as you were saying that, I'm sitting here picturing you guys sharpening each other's tools, leveling up. You probably even forget all the people you're passing, all the other inspectors that are not doing that, right? And so to me, I'm just thinking you guys are picking off inspections from other guys without even realizing it, probably because you're leveling each other up. Have you guys done market share analysis yet, or do you have an idea? Because a lot of inspectors probably need to get a grasp on, like, if you both split the market 50-50, like, you'd be rolling in it, right? I mean, it's like, it'd be insane. You'd be so successful and dominant, but like, you're probably in single digit percentages of market share, I'd imagine, right?
I'm at roughly 9% for my market. So I only know that from today, right? So I knew you would ask these questions. I've heard I love it when they know their numbers and this, that, and the other. I can't lie to you about it, right? So I'm pulling it up. Redfin, Hot Springs Village. Okay, how many did I do in May? How many were sold? Excellent. What's that? Ooh, that's only 9%. It's a 8.7529 or whatever.
That's great. Great.
That's 9% of the market.
But
I know he was probably at about 9% of that market too. So if you look at Hot Springs Village, and you think about his month and how much he was out there, he was probably somewhere 7, 8, 9% there. But we've got so much more room to grow. And that's the exciting part.
Because even if you're at 20 and 20, there's still 60% left out there, and so the numbers are mind-boggling when you realize how much you can work together to dominate. Do you guys ever do joint brokerage presentations where you realize, hey, we don't have anyone in this office of 10 agents that are rainmakers? Let's go in there and just tag team it. Like, have you guys thought that? About it.
Yeah.
Because to me,
we're really
the story of collaboration is almost more powerful than anything, where they'll all fall in love with the story of who you guys are, and then they're like, cool, we're only using you two. and then boom, like
Put them on there.
yeah.
Yeah. We just started having, I shouldn't say we just started, we've been having different conversations of how to kind of steward or better leverage what we have here to get more of that market share and to increase. We've both grown significantly, I would say, since we started really pushing each other. We've seen a really good growth in numbers, and we've been able to even bring up prices and continue to grow because of what's going on out there. So we have begun to talk about what it looks like to do that both for our residential companies, to try and fill in those first 2 slots in whatever agency we walk into, and then the commercial side of things. So we actually do residential together as well. Just whoever got the job, we'll do it under their template. So we've done, I think we did a 12,500 square foot house that was just a beast. It was on the lake, so we had that boat dock inspection, pool.
Wow.
They had a little cabana, and we were there. We're pretty expeditious, but this house, I think we were there for about 7 hours with the 2 of us. But we divided up. You do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to handle this. We collaborate at lunch, get on the same page. So when they call me afterwards, or call him afterwards, we have all the answers ready for them. But it just, it's just great. It sounds kind of too good to be true, but it's working for us.
I'm a big fan of what you just said too, in terms of raising the bar on pricing and services wise, because typically the dynamics work the other direction when there's no kind of quality bar, right? Everyone's racing to the bottom and trying to like price undercut, and you guys are actually doing the market and the industry a big favor by raising the quality. And agents know they're getting a consistent kind of experience, right? That goes from pricing to services to on-site. So I like that you guys are thinking about that as well, because to me, the pricing thing is a big deal in a market of like the quality that you get for the dollars spent.
And we have become consistent in our pricing. So our pricing is right there, right? So just each level.
It's very close.
In our market, in Arkansas, it's a lower income state. We're one of the lowest paid in the industry. But what we found as a way to kind of combat that is in the scale, right? So, and I learned this through, Spectora and looking at the pricing and kind of fiddling around with it. And I see the scaling and for the pricing. And so we set that minimum level, which here we're at $350, which is roughly about $60 more than the average person out here. It's normally about $290, $300. And then your mid section's around $320 for your up to 1,500 square feet. But then as we scale to 2,000 and 2,500 and 3,000 square feet, our numbers are scaling significantly more than most of the other inspection agencies around here. And it works because at that point, as the buyers that are coming in for a 3,000 square foot home and a 4,000 square foot home, that conversation about how much does it cost doesn't really happen, right?
It's different. Yeah.
It's a completely different story. So you're still competitive in that lower market range for the 1,500s. You're pricing out probably the ones you don't want to begin with. And then you're compounding on the ones that matter the most, right? And then the ancillary services on top of it. And we're, like I said in the beginning, with that energy boat dock inspection, it's 2 massive lakes in this area. And any house that sells that has one on it, it's not a choice. It has to be inspected. So that's $200 immediately that you're adding on to your inspections. And ancillaries are kind of a newer type of idea out here. But that makes a huge, easy transition into gaining that extra couple $100 for an inspection in this market.
Love the concept of dominating on the luxury front and then charging what you're truly worth, as the houses get bigger and you add on more services. That's like a good business efficiency tip too for inspectors listening, is like optimize on the bigger homes and to stand out there, because I guarantee if you guys could do 5,000 to 10,000 square foot homes all day, and that's it, you do it, right? You take it in a heartbeat.
We have that conversation every time. If we could just knock one of these out a day, roll on, that would be awesome.
And then it elevates your thinking too of like, what is premium? What does premium look like if we were the premium home inspectors catering to premium agents and premium buyers? And then it elevates everything from there. What else do you guys look to when you think of expanding the experience of the home buyers, the agents? Like how else are you thinking of adding more, whether it's adding more value? I know we're doing some stuff with like the recommended contractors and kind of the partnership stuff. So like, do clients out there care about that? Do they ask you guys for recommendations? Are they looking for more from home inspectors, or is it just different where you're at?
So I
It's
would say
yeah. Go ahead,
clients
Chad.
do. Clients always ask those questions, right?
Yeah.
But with our restrictions, it makes it extremely difficult to be able to safely navigate that conversation. When it comes to the board around here, it's complete taboo and can't, and more of a old thought process, in which, we joining in the board meetings and listening through and trying to come up with a game plan of how we can tackle through that. I love the partnership ideas and stuff that y'all are doing on there. It's just that we cannot implement those things into our reports without facing repercussions. And so it's a difficult line to feather at this point. But I think that as a whole, for what y'all are doing, don't stop, because if more of it changes in this state and that state, and we have more information to pull from of how it's working here and how it's working here, then we can begin to make a change here as well and make it holistically throughout the country. So I say continue on, because it is huge. I never, like I said, most of these people are moving in from out of state or from up in this city, which is 2 hours away. They don't know anybody, whatever it may be. And when you have those, when they come here, they're just looking for recommendations, right? And tradespeople are not always the easiest to find on Google. It's just,
True.
that's especially the good ones, right? Because they're just word of mouth, hometown in a rural area, right? Maybe Los Angeles, Dallas, places like that be a little different. But out here, you just don't know those people because Google doesn't either.
Right.
And that word of mouth is what does it.
Yeah. And I would say my experience is a little bit different in that regard, in terms of, now they're very strict in Arkansas. Like, they just did this whole thing with the board. We can't even bring in cookies to a real estate office. It's considered exchanging goods for a place on their list, and it's on it. Can't bring cookies, can't bring food, no branded goods into a real estate office. It's anything of perceived value is considered that we're exchanging it for a place on their list, and it's considered unethical. They just solidified this in this past year, which is, when you have a commercial company, gives you a little bit of a loophole, because the state here does not oversee commercial at all.
Ooh.
They can't, they don't oversee it. They don't license it, any of that stuff.
Leave it alone. Leave it alone.
Yes.
ACPI sponsored your cookies today, the commercial inspection company. But what I get a lot, so I'm a licensed contractor as well. I build custom homes in all my free time. And so they asked me, and that's part of my marketing too, right? Is I just had a guy today, hey, you're about $40 more expensive than this person. My response is, when I show up, you're getting a licensed home inspector and a licensed contractor walking through your home. And so on the flip side of things, and again, if I inspect a home, I can't address any deficiencies for one full year.
Right.
But where that does come into play is they want to know my subcontractors. Who do you trust to look at my roof? Who do you trust for this? And in that moment, I say, I can't give you anyone, but I think your realtor has some recommendations. And then sure enough, if they don't have anyone, I'll get a text from the realtor later that day. Hey, Matt, who do you use? And I'll send them a few different names so that they can pass them along. But it puts some space, because again, their concern there is still, I give you my roofer's number and they pay me some kind of a commission because I got them work. And so I've got to put that separation between me and the client. So there is no, I've given you one name and this is my go-to person. But that's kind of a way that I circumnavigate the perception of any issues or any ethical violations, and can still be of service to those clients. We're moving, like Chad said, you're moved from out of state and you don't know anyone. And I know my agents appreciate very much that they can call me and have those conversations.
No, I like that. That's a good way around it. So yeah, we'll continue to brainstorm on our end on ways to structure that for states like yours, to where if there can be a buffer or a middleman or something to protect you on that front. But conversation for another day. I know you guys probably were expecting this question. Should you both keep growing your businesses? Everyone knows businesses at scale are more valuable. Would it ever make sense to merge or run a bigger operation? Because then there's two of you all the time training, working with agents in the field, out of the field, like putting you on the spot here, but like everyone's probably wondering.
Well, We talk about it all the time. I mean,
Okay, cool.
it's
Cool.
not a
Cool. Okay,
conversation.
cool.
It's not a conversation we don't have, especially
Sure.
as the commercial is evolving.
Sure.
Then and now we're getting more of those, and that's taking up space and time. And when you go do a 48 unit apartment complex, that's not a slot in your day. That is your day or 2 days. And so that's taking up 2 days. And when it comes to residential, 2 days, that's 2 out of 8. 2 out of 10, hoping that your client called you with the full 10 days to go, right? They may only call you with the 5. So it makes it harder for scheduling. And that's definitely a conversation. We're not sure exactly how that looks or what that looks like. But it's not something that we are not thinking about. It's a conversation that happens quite often.
Sure.
Because it also becomes one name on that list instead of 2. And so that's
True.
kind of the conversation we've had, or some of the hesitation there is, okay, what does it look like if we continue? What would it even look like if we were to somehow, legally or financially do some kind of a merger and work out a structure, but retain our individual companies so that we can kind of keep a foothold where we've already gotten it. And then, of course, anytime that you grow a business or you build a reputation around it, you stand to lose a percentage of your base whenever you make a major shift or change in your company. And so that's just all things we're exploring. We definitely will have those moments where, like, dude, why have we not done this yet? Like, why are we not just, because even from you look at family time. Okay, how great would it be is if when we go on vacations, we already know that we've got somebody fully trained and ready to go. They're not somebody that we brought in and hired later. We both have the experience. I don't have to worry or think about Chad being on a job while I'm out of town, and vice versa. So it is an evolving conversation, and we've probably just the last couple of weeks talked about, okay, let's find some people that have done something similar, or found a way to make something work where they've come together and maybe tweak it a little bit for us and to make it, as effective as possible.
And I'll allude to a podcast that you had recently that I was listening to, where they were talking about, well, what are you, what if you come in and you are the 3 slots on that list, right?
Right.
And so that, without saying too much, because I don't want to give out too much of that process, but that's
Sure.
A thought idea that's really rolling around is, what does it look like if we're 2 of those 3 names on their top 3 list?
Yeah.
But taking part together in both sides of it. 1 is 2 and 2 is 1.
It's such a great thought experiment, because to me, especially in smaller mid-sized markets, if the experience is that great, where the person answering the phones, the follow-up, the concierge, all of this comes together, I don't think agents mind if they just have. Do they have to give 3 in Arkansas? Do they have to give 3 names by
It's one of those
unwritten rules?
I don't know if it's like, it's
They
definitely
say it.
not enforced.
Okay. Yeah.
But
They're not putting an asterisk next to our name, but they might say, start at the top of the list, or things of that nature. And then the flip side is, because of, I don't want to take away, or I don't want to sound arrogant, but I also don't want to take away from part of what works is we do a very good job. We do very thorough inspections. We have great communication skills with our clients on both the front and the back side of the reporting. And so all of that helps to grow things and give our, agents confidence. But those are all things that we've had to integrate and continue to do to make sure that things ramp up and stay consistent. So I think
so anyone out there that has gone through this, definitely reach out. We'll get your guys' contact information and get it in the description at the end, because I'm sure someone listening, if not having been through it, knows someone that has. And then I'll have a few names for you guys that I know for sure have been through a merger or acquisition of sorts, and maybe they can shed some light on kind of how that went. But yeah, I'm a big fan of formalizing and kind of using that scale to bring in, say, tighter admins that answer phones, and a salesperson, a growth person, and then it just starts to snowball. Then it's like you just dominate a market, and agents are just like, nope, you go here for everything.
That's the goal.
It's a fun dream, right? It's fun to dream kind of together on the pod. So do you guys, like, what does the other competition think about? Are they responding, or have you guys just because you guys seem like you got your shit together and buttoned up? It's like, are you just not even pay attention to that, and you're like, you know what, they can look up at us all they want?
Yeah, That's been a shift, I think, over time. There's a couple guys in my market that are just running things. I mean, they've been in it longer than Chad or I have been in it. And so I cast a very wide net when I started my business because I knew that in my area there were a couple guys that had such a strong presence. I didn't want to have to remove them to get the volume that I needed. And I definitely on the front end of things was, especially with Facebook and you're seeing things going on, definitely watch them more closely at the beginning than I do now. Because we've kind of just arrived at this place of like, okay, we're going to be our best. We're going to get in front of, and the rest will take care of itself. And we've had some trial and error even in bringing people alongside and seeing like, is this a fit for what we have here or is it not? You know, there's one individual early on, and it just that individual moved more into, you know, all of a sudden showing up at all the events that I was going to and talking to the same people I was talking to, and it you know, a little bit of a red flag of, okay, this isn't a team player, this is somebody, you know, kind of leeching off what we're building.
Sure.
But we recently connected with the guy I mentioned earlier in Jonesboro. Yeah. And man, he is a fit. I mean, the three of us did that commercial job. It was a blast. Phenomenal feedback from the apartment staff. Our client flew in from out of state, and just you know, we've got our ACPI t-shirts. We try to dress similarly, just project that professional, you know, and you could just see them watching us run around and do our things. And so that's, you've got to kind of lean into things a little bit and you know, test the waters, and don't be afraid to kind of move away from something you've invested in a little bit if you recognize that that's not going to help you grow. But then when you find that thing, or that person, sorry, that is a fit, you go hard. And so we've been talking with this individual. I've talked to him for almost a full year now, just because we connected over some CE classes. We just on a chat, you know, you're watching the Zoom call and jumping in and cracking jokes, but watched his Facebook presence, watched what agents were tagging him, just to perceive, okay, is this someone who does things with excellence? And we gave him a shot this last week. We're like, all right, let's bring him in, see how things mesh. And man, it was, Chad and I both walked away being like, okay, this is number 3, you know, he's in. And so, and we told him that, and
you're in the club.
Yeah. And unintentionally, he had a trial by fire. So we didn't necessarily plan for him to do it this way. I initially brought him on for an ancillary service because he does sewer scopes, and the client decided to do that. My intention was have him come do that and he can take off. He said, no, I want to stay with you guys, put me to work. And so he popped up into, you know, 24 different attic scuttle holes, and was moving around while we were working through our unit. So he earned it, both in what the effort he put in, but also just the personality, the professionalism. It was all there. And so we're excited to push a little bit more. And that's kind of the vision I had with ACPI, was how, instead of having to staff a team that can come in and take care of these things, how can I collaborate with other inspectors that are doing what I'm doing, to take on these larger jobs, still do things very, very well, but not have it consume, you know, 4 to 5 days of my time to knock it out. And so the goal is kind of that we want to build such a presence commercially that we have other local inspectors. How do I get in on this? I see what you guys are doing. And so I've not gotten those calls. I've had a couple guys inquire like, oh, you guys are hanging out. But most of the comments I've got from people concerning our dynamic have not been inspectors. It's been other agents that are kind of watching Facebook and from a distance and seeing what we're doing.
Love it. Love it. I have a question that I get a lot from inspectors that want me to ask this, that what you said prompted, is in small to mid-sized markets, when you get into it, like you said, there's an established player, 2 or 5 that have the relationships. They've known Jane and Jill and Bob for 20 years, right? So can each of you speak a little, and Chad, I'll start with you, on how you busted into that? Because if you can't bring cookies or breakfast, what was the thought process with saying, man, there's these long-standing relationships that I have to build trust and credibility in a short amount of time, sometimes 2 weeks in Matt's case? Like, how did you guys approach that?
So this will be fun because, again, this will allude back to how my approach and his approach were completely different, right? which things have evolved and changed in more recent months. But when I started, again, I had no idea what I was doing or how to do it, right? So I go through my class, I pass my test, and now what? Because there is no ride along there and it's not that the camaraderie that like we have doesn't exist. So finding someone to be able to do that out here, where you don't have to or aren't forcibly, having to follow or alongside with somebody, it was a little more difficult. So I leaned into not I'd like to say what I know, but I didn't. I wasn't in social media until about a year before I started this, but I could see it. I can understand it. I've been building computers and know computers, just didn't want anything to do with social media and things of that nature for a long time. So I leaned into, funny things of that nature. I'm having a presence. I know that immersing myself. So joining into all the real estate groups and things like that on Facebook. And so then when I'm sharing here, then I'm also sharing to all these groups, boom, 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 going with like a Grant Cardone background, right? You may not like me, but you know who I am, baby, right? You know who I am. This is there. And I was up against it, right? I've got the Lord's Drapes.
mullet helped.
We were going to talk about it. It was going to come up in the last 10 minutes here.
I've got the Lord's Drapes right here, and it's not an easy thing in a professional market, right? But I wanted to be who I was, and so I went in with a good communication, conversation, going out there, trying different things on social media. I leaned into a couple of agencies that I knew somebody there, or it's something of that nature, person who sold me my house, that type of stuff. And just get up there and talk, communicate about what I know and what it is, my background in construction and remodels. I'm also a contractor, still carry my contractor's license, having that type of, conversation. And then focusing in on not just my communication with them, but expressing my communication before and after the fact for their clients. So even though there's big players, people are willing to take a chance when they feel a good vibe, right? When they feel something that seems genuine. So if you're trying to come in and fake it and create a presentation that doesn't make any sense, it's never going to work. It's not going to, you don't break the ice by coming up with lies. Come in there, be who you are, and express it in a way that can reach them and help them see how it will reach and affect their clients. If you can do that, you'll have no problem. It may take a minute. It's not necessarily easy. Somebody's gonna be the sacrificial lamb to go out on that limb in that agency. And when they do, they'll see it. As long as you stand by what you say and what you do, it's going to happen. It's going to turn around, and then it snowballs. Because this was a problem getting in at first. Now I got agents saying, "Hey, will you go tag me with your toothpick and your mullet in front of one of my signs? Tag them in front of their signs, right?" And it's just, and then you've got other agents chiming in. I better get one of those real soon, or that next 5-star is going to be a 1-star. Just little things like that. And it just use what you have and don't be afraid of it. Just go for it.
Great advice.
But be genuine.
Yeah. Relationship, I think, is the thread that runs through everything he just said.
Mm-hmm.
Is building authentic relationship with people. I just can't tell you, and we've all seen it. The guy that goes and posted, hey, this is Tom with Your Best Home Inspection, and I got a leaky pipe here today, and make sure you call me. And just no life to it, no excitement. And so bringing in there and having a personality is big. But I just say, my advice in that moment is similar to what Chad said. The best version of you is you. And so you figure out what thing you have that sets you apart, what makes you different. The contract thing helped me on the front end for sure. Hey, I've been in construction industry for this many years. I think for me personally, I think my presentation is what blew doors wide open for me. Really took time into it. I had a couple inspections early on that had a little bit of a powerful story to it. One individual, it was a wife whose husband had passed away, and she was using part of his life insurance to buy a home for her and her daughters. And that, I think we can never underestimate the amount of trust that our clients are putting in us in that moment. And so I take those real experiences I've had in the field, and instead of showing them, here's 5 examples of moisture intrusion today, I'm going to show them, hey, here's a family, here's a person, here's what they went through, and here's how I saved them. here's how by being thorough and caring and going the extra mile, I kept them from a bad moment. And I don't say I kept them from a bad purchase. I say I gave them the information needed to correct things before they moved in. Because the last thing you want to do is say, I cared enough to kill a deal.
Right. There's
But,
a fine line there.
Yep. And I give them the speech. Like I say, hey, we do not kill deals. Bad homes and negligent homeowners kill deals. And I also would encourage people, if you are like Chad and I, who are a little bit heavy-handed in your reporting, teach your agents how to prep your clients. Hey, Matt is going to write down everything he sees. Everything in your report is not going to be, overly significant or important to you, but he wants you to know what you're saying yes to. He wants to give you peace of mind. So and this is what I tell him too, if I talk to him first, is when you move in and you see that door that doesn't close right, or you see that window that binds, I want you to know that your inspector took the time to tell you about it before you're there. And so that really, to me, has been a beneficial tool in, there's only one agent that I've had some like, she is not a fan of me for my thoroughness, and she doesn't like Chad either. But but what I find is she does not coach her clients, and she does not make room for those conversations, which, completely we've got to word our narratives a certain way, right? Because we carry a lot of liability when we walk into that home. Right. And you start doing, 10 inspections a week by yourself. And you think about, that liability window and how many millions of dollars you're just sitting on until the phone rings. I can have a much softer conversation than what that black and white reads when they open that report. And so I would say that teach your agents when you're presenting how to prep their clients for your reporting style, and just be authentic to yourself and find that one thing that makes you different and appeal to that and see who bites.
Guys, this is such amazing advice. It's clear why you guys have succeeded. I like you guys. You guys are amazing. You guys are stars. And I think the success is going to continue. You guys mentioned books and podcasts. I don't want to leave without getting a couple of your top kind of things you consume, because I think the way you guys present and talk about what's going on in your businesses and lives is inspiring. And I think people probably want to know what your information diet is. So rattle off a couple. I'll put them in the description. But yeah, Chad, we'll start with you.
I'm all over the place, but Real AF with Andy Priscilla, the Ed Milet Show, Endless Endeavor, Jordan Pierce. I'm actually looking at it right now, just trying to give you more of it. But then Alex Hormozy, The Game, Jocko Podcast, Lewis House, just all kinds of things, right? Books. The most recent that I've gone through and enjoyed was One More with Ed Milet, which I got from you talking about it in one of your podcasts when he was just dropping that book. 10X Rule, Grant Cardone.
Classic.
Well, let's see. Loopholes of the Rich, Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Redefine Impossible, Green Lights. They're all on the shelf right there.
And I love that we just got a shot of your hair because you were turning around and looking at your books. It takes it full circle. We came full circle.
Oh, but yeah,
cool.
There's a bunch of them, man. Don't stop learning.
Yes. Key to everything. I love it.
Yeah,
I'm working on
my yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I'm having to dial in on. Chad's really been encouraging me in the podcast and the audiobook arena, because my road time right now is phone time. It's calling subs, if I've got it's lining things up on these houses I'm building. And so I'm working on integrating more of the reading stuff. So as far as how I'm growing and learning things is through relationship. It's with guys like Chad. It's with guys like Brian, people that I'm talking to constantly that I know have expertise in areas that I don't. And then it's also because I build these homes, I've got a list of subcontractors to pull from that I'm saying, what do you think about this? I'll send them a picture. Hey, this is what I'm seeing. I feel like it's wrong, but I don't know why. Can you walk me through this? And then honestly, a lot of the forums, it's a very bittersweet place, these Facebook groups and forums, because just some people just like to complain and gripe. And then some people, part of my confidence, I think, comes from watching some of what people post on these forums and feeling like, man, if he can make it,
I'm really going to win. Yeah. If he's getting business, I'm winning.
my father-in-law always tells me whenever I think about taking on something new, he looks at me and says, Matt, surely someone less intelligent than you's figured this out.
Right.
And so that's where I digest a lot of my stuff. So I'm working on my list. But those are just conversation, relationship. I'm constantly drawing from subs, constantly learning on my job sites while I'm building homes. Is a lot of real world, in my face kind of pickup as I go stuff. So I'll put it like this. That's an area of growth that Chad is holding me accountable in. But it's been busy, man. All the kids at home.
You got 4.9 kids, so you get a pass. And
Yeah,
I call
that's right.
Chad a cheat code friend, where it's like we can ask him about the books he's read.
Yeah.
He gives us what he's learned,
Yep.
and we get the cliff notes. It's not all of it. It's not 100%, but
Right.
I love cheat code
Yep.
friends like that.
Yep.
Guys, this was great. Really appreciate you. This has been a blast. I think it's going to be an awesome episode.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah.
But thanks, guys. And I'll link to your websites, your emails, kind of in the description if anyone wants to reach out to learn more, kind of just about everything we talked about. But really appreciate the time, guys, and continued success.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We appreciate the opportunity.
All right, guys. Talk soon.
See you, man.
All right, later.